Welcoming now to the program, independent candidate for Congress running against Adam Schiff in the 28th District, Jennifer Barbosa. Jennifer, welcome.
Welcome.
Thank you, Dr. Drew.
And lean right in on this thing. It's highly directional. There you go. Much better. You can follow her at Team Jen Barbosa, BARBOSA, Barbosa2020.com. Anchor Down. My son went to Vanderbilt as well.
Oh.
Did you undergraduate at Vanderbilt?
Yes.
Yeah. So how long ago were you there? You don't mind me asking?
Oh,
Did I spend a lot of
that's
time?
the one question I don't like. Is
Okay,
how
it's
old
all right.
am I?
It's
In
all
the
right.
90s. We'll say the 90s.
Okay, because I spent a lot of time in Nashville. Boy, what a great Vanderbilt.
That's your place where you dream of, right?
Vanderbilt is
Going to Tennessee.
I'm thinking about moving to Tennessee.
Are you?
But Vanderbilt is like college nirvana these days. I don't know if you've seen how that school has just come on.
Yes.
Yeah. So
And
congratulations.
when I was there, they had an endowment. I don't know if it's still in place. I assume it is to keep the foliage and the plants very beautiful. So it was just.
Well, it's more than just beautiful. They really it's now become the Ivy League of the South kind of thing.
Yeah.
So anyway, thank you for taking on these issues. Homelessness, substance abuse, crime. You've brought for us, Leeann, you got in front of you from Maxine Waters.
Right, H.R. 1856, which Jennifer brought in a copy for us, which is basically Congress's version, per Maxine Waters, of what their idea for homelessness is, right? It was, and you say it was sent to the floor July 25th, but they haven't actually brought it down for a vote, right? Yeah.
Can you summarize what's in there?
Yes. Summary would be Eric Garcetti. Basically, their Maxine Waters solution to homelessness, or proposed solution, is to replicate the same policies that Eric Garcetti, our mayor, has.
I mean, those super successful policies that our mayors.
Right.
Yeah, well,
he came in saying, I'm going to get rid of homelessness, and then now everything is housing first. Well, we've seen how that's worked out, right?
So, yes, and so Congress is proposing, the Democrat Congress is proposing, and I would like to add that Adam Schiff signed onto this bill. He supports this approach as well. They're proposing, just an enormous amount of money for the $500,000 to $700,000 quote-unquote affordable housing, and very, very little for mental health and basic health care services that these people obviously
right, because as I joke with Dr. Drew a lot, I say,
Fail.
Give somebody a $750,000 apartment with a tiny little porthole and a nice gym when they walk into it, and suddenly, as soon as you give them the keys and they walk into their room, the schizophrenia goes away, or their bipolar,
the drug addiction stops.
Their drug addiction
Their
stops.
interest in heroin just goes
great!
away.
And suddenly they can afford $2,000 rent a month for a studio apartment or a one bedroom, like every other hardworking person. It's like it just seems so backwards to me. Mm-hmm. And we could prove that last year, LA County and LA City spent over $1 billion on this homeless situation. It's only gotten worse. More people have come in. So throwing money at it, that's not the problem. We have plenty of money to throw out, especially with Triple H, and we've taxed ourselves to death on this issue. They're not spending it right. It's only getting worse. If we were a private business and this happened, you'd have your funding taken away right away, because it's obviously not doing anything.
Absolutely. And it's our money. It's our tax money. And it's going to real estate developers.
Right.
And real estate developers fund our local congressmen and, mayor, city councilmen, and they're the ones who are pushing these policies. It's it's a money making machine.
Exactly.
So what are you going to do different?
And why independent? Like why not take? I realize you're one or the other, but sometimes it's kind of hard to be an independent.
Yeah. That's the most common question I get, especially from Republicans. Why aren't you running as Republican? And I don't think a lot of people realize that now Republican is kind of like third party in our district.
Oh, yeah,
we have
totally.
so few Republicans.
Yeah.
We have 420,000 registered voters in our district, 220,000 Democrats. Guess how many Republicans?
Oh, boy.
70,000.
Oh, boy.
70,000. 1/6 of the voters are Republicans. So every single Republican could turn out on election day and vote Republican, which they wouldn't, because some of them don't even vote Republican. And half the Democrats could stay home, but the Democrats would still win. However, we have 130,000 independents, and that group is growing and growing and growing. And I don't know if you've seen the recent polls showing how independents are more and more likely to be opposed to impeachment, which our congressman favors. Mm-hmm. So those are some great reasons right there to run as independent.
Not only does Schiff favor that, he was like the spearhead from the beginning. Come on now. He's been crazy obsessed over it since day one. Even before day one, actually.
How is it campaigning? How do you like it?
Fabulous. I'm very, very glad that I started early. I started in March of this year. And I worked on a few campaigns in the past. And one thing I learned is that Democrats, say what you will about them, there's plenty to say, but they work. They have fabulous ground game. So I started from the beginning trying to replicate some of what they've done.
Do you go door to door? Like, what do you do?
Absolutely. That's
meetings,
the heart of it.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Because when a voter meets a candidate face to face in person, they're 60% more likely to vote for that candidate regardless of party. And Democrats know that, and they utilize that. They raise a lot of money to hire workers. If you hire a worker to go to someone's door, that voter is 30% more likely. That's still great. That's better odds than an advertisement.
Right. How many people in your district?
Well, there's 720,000 people, but 420,000 voters.
Okay.
And so we need, let's say, 20 to 30,000 votes to get past the primary. Our election in California, it's called a jungle primary. So this is another reason to run as independent.
Yeah, it could be same party.
Right.
Yeah.
The top 2 vote getters in the primary progress to the general. We know the top vote getter in the primary is going to be Adam Schiff. The next one just needs, based on recent past elections, between 20 and 30,000. So having hit 15,000 doors on top of all the other sort of outreach that we're doing is really it's a tremendous feat.
Jennifer Barbosa running against Adam Schiff in the 28th District at Team Jen Barbosa or Barbosa2020.com. We'll get back with your calls for Jennifer at 800-222-5222 in just a moment. It is Midday Live. Leeann, Tweeden, Dr. Drew. Our number is 800-222-5222. We're speaking to independent candidate for Congress running against Adam Schiff in California's 28th District, Jennifer Barbosa. Barbosa, B-A-R-B-O-S-A. 2020.com is where you can find out more. And here is a challenging and good question for you, Jennifer. Joe, go ahead.
Hey, Dr. Drew, I heard you mention that, I hear your passion, basically saying that if you don't have any mental health training, you shouldn't be trying
shouldn't have an important position in the conversation. That's all I'm saying.
I see. Okay, so I'm in a 12-step program. I have been doing for the last 20 years.
Well, by the way, hold on a second. You therefore you have a lot of experience in the silo of addiction and recovery. So you do deserve a place at the table. So go ahead.
Okay. All right. So thank you so much. So I started we called it Rejoicing Recovery. We did our first meeting about 3 weeks ago, right there across from the Midnight Mission.
Beautiful.
And I got to tell you, I was super surprised how enthusiastic that community was. They just walked right in. We didn't even have flyers or anything like that. They heard me playing my guitar. They walked in there and they listened for about an hour and a half on a faith-based recovery angle, and their hands were in the air. I could tell that probably half of them at least were probably had been drinking and using, but I couldn't believe, because I've spoken at the Midnight Mission before, but I couldn't believe how enthusiastic, how involved they seem to have been.
Well, good.
In that
They're desperate.
State.
They're desperate for stuff. But the question you're asking, Joe, is I want Jennifer to address, why can't we collaborate with faith-based recovery or faith-based institutions like Andy Bales
who do good work,
who've been doing the mission work forever and know exactly what's going on here? It seems like because of
we know they don't make developers any money, because he's like, I can do the beds for $10,000 a bed when developers want to make $750,000 apartments,
or separation of church and state or something.
That too. Catherine Barger has mentioned that as well.
What do you say, Jennifer?
I agree with you on that. I have a policy proposal for homelessness, which includes working with faith-based churches, basically. And I don't know what is that. Has there been a political pushback on that?
Yes. Catherine Barger said they can't release money to people like Andy Bales because it's
can't even talk to him.
Faith-based.
Yeah, but he can't get anybody's attention.
Right. So government
Joe,
money
I don't know
goes
if
to
your
him.
sort of thing is enough sort of, it's mutual aid. It's not faith per se. You know, it's not a religion. It's a mutual aid. Maybe we could find a little wrinkle there for people like you. We'll talk about that, okay?
Okay.
All right. So in his particular version of 12-step, they're using a faith-based component. Doesn't make it religion.
Isn't AA kind of faith-based?
It can be, and again,
the beginning of that or whatever.
There's different elements to that.
Okay, right.
But the point is, just because you mention a higher power, you now can't be in participation with the American government or the California state government. Isn't that crazy?
I was speaking with a pastor in our district a few weeks ago, and he was talking about how his church helped rehabilitate 2 people. It's not a lot, but it's 2.
Sure.
Right. And in that community. That's big.
Yes.
But let's be clear. If church was sufficient to treat addiction, I'd be referring routinely. It's not, but it's a help. It can be a handmaiden to all this. Mm-hmm. So go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, well, the point is he thought that he had reached his max there. That 2 was really all they could. They were successful with the 2, but 2 was a lot for.
And I'm sure it was a lot of work too.
It's a lot, yeah.
It's a lot of work. Just emotionally and mentally trying to get people up and out of homelessness or whatever addiction they're in, you know?
Yes.
Well, let's keep taking some calls here. 800-222-5222. Mark is echoing what I'm always saying. Mark, go ahead.
Hi, good afternoon. This is really frustrating to me that it does not get attacked from every single angle. Housing is just a part of the problem. Housing, mental health, medical health, as well as teaching people how to live day by day, as well as teaching them some kind of skill. I'm an electrician and I can figure this out.
Yes, yes, you can.
Pardon me?
Yes, you can. That's exactly right. I had Kay Smythe on a podcast yesterday. She'd been in this country a year. She figured it out. It's very obvious.
It's frustrating when these different politicians want to give them housing. And I can really echo what I'm feeling when I'm home. But
if you are in Jennifer's district, is Toluca Lake in your district?
No, it's not. It's outside the district.
But still, that this is her point too, which is that this rhetoric about housing is a hoax. Would you agree?
Absolutely. It's racketeering. The real estate developers are making a lot of money. The politicians are getting tons of money for their campaigns from the real estate developers. And it's our money. It's tax money. The reason these units cost $500,000 is because they're taking our money and giving them to the real estate developers.
Of course.
It's not. Yes.
Of course.
Our number is 800-222-5222. We've got some great questions coming in. We're going to come back to that in just a moment. It's AM 790 KBC. It is Midday Live. Leeann, Tweeden, Dr. Drew. We're talking to Jennifer Barbosa, candidate for Congress. Chevy, you have an interesting question. Go ahead.
Yes. What about declaring a national emergency that's been put out there as a strategy? Pass a lot of the permits and a lot of the funding. I don't know why that hasn't been declared anyways, but what's Jennifer's position on putting that out there?
If the president wanted to declare a national emergency, that would be fine with me.
Would you advocate for it? Because there a way as a congressman you can get through to the president to lobby for that? To the
as a congressman, sure, yes.
Yeah, was that something you would do?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. We need federal resources here. We need that here.
So a FEMA-style emergency is something you would sign off on immediately?
Absolutely.
Well, even just recently, remember Garcetti was threatening of possibly doing a California state of emergency. And I remember there was just talk, and I feel like it was just talk just to get people off their backs for a minute. They weren't really going to do it, and that's why I always said President Trump federally needs to come in and have FEMA style and have the tent sprung up. And
is it was one of your campaign positions say that you say my first order of business to meet with Ben Carson and get a FEMA style emergency in here, or is that just something that you should still contemplate?
No, I have not made that an official position, but I can. I think that when you have a congressman like Schiff who is so antagonistic towards the president, it's only natural, it's only human for the president to think, let the voters there see what a mess, let them suffer, sort of thing. And I think that if we have someone in there who was willing to work with the president, as I would be, then we could have more of a back and forth dialogue and get more resources and more attention to what we need attention to.
And you were just mentioning during break too that Schiff just avoids having any sort of town halls talking. He hasn't talked to any of his constituents about what's going on in the homeless and the transient situation in his own district, right?
Correct. He doesn't have he has not had a real public town hall that's unscripted in years.
Right.
Years. He has things that he calls town halls. He had one this weekend and it did not go over well. There were some protesters there, but even then it's relegated. They say we're just going to talk about one particular topic. In this case, it was the Armenian genocide. And you don't want to protest something that's commemorating the Armenian genocide. So, he shields himself in that way.
Of course.
And it's unfortunate because, he says he's coming home and talking to constituents. He said this with Jake Tapper a few weeks ago. So we called his office to find out, when are you talking with constituents? They had nothing planned. They said, just email us.
Yeah. And yeah, you know how that goes. You can email your politician a million times. They won't call you back or they won't email you back. You never hear from them and they just blow you off.
I've tried
until there's a solid person that could really, threaten his reelection and getting back into power or like staying in power. That's the only way because he's feeling nobody's going to touch him. And now, to me, I almost feel like he was doing this whole impeachment thing for his own PR because to a lot of people, he's a hero. So it's probably to a lot of people in your district, he's a hero.
I'm glad you understand that because a lot of, particularly Republicans, are saying, "Oh, the voters are waking up. It'll, it's going to flip red."
No, for most people who really aren't educated on now Adam Schiff is like a household name, and it wasn't before.
Correct.
It's like he's doing this just to help himself get reelected.
Yes. And I don't know if you are familiar with this poll that came out about 6 weeks ago, saying it was a Fox poll saying that 1 in 10 Republicans do not like President Trump. And Trump was appalled by that. Fox, what are you doing to me? This isn't true. Haven't you seen my crowds? But I have found that speaking with even Republicans in our district about 1 in 10.
He burns everybody out.
Sure.
He burns everybody out.
Yeah. It's just great. It's just hard to do. Every day it's just like,
what next? Well, the catastrophe we're going to wake up to. I imagine a lot of people are going to get fed up with that. We have to let you go. I appreciate you being here. Give us the last 20 seconds, Barbosa2020.com. Anything else we should know?
Barbosa2020.com. You can contact me directly. All my contact information is on the website. I'd love to speak with constituents. I'd love to hear from voters. I'd love to hear what's important to you. And thank you very much